Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Johnson. I'm here with my friends Lisa and Franco Esile to talk about their new book, Whose Mind Is It Anyway? A little sun on there. They co-wrote and co-illustrated this book, and I love it. I'll talk more about it. We'll talk about the book and kind of what's in here. It's really awesome. I don't know if you can see on here all the amazing illustrations, but we'll get into that. But first, let me just introduce those of you who don't know. I think probably a lot of people watching this might know Lisa. So this is just kind of my informal introduction to Lisa, but she's been blogging and talking about these things in all kinds of creative ways. She has these awesome cards. She does all these illustrations, just really kind of helping people, I think, just understand how their mind works in an accurate, simple way that most of us don't know. And I know her blog is really popular and people love it. So many people come to me, probably a lot of people that I know kind of met me through Lisa or vice versa. And people are constantly just telling me like how much they love her stuff and some of her articles. They're funny and they're unique. So that's Lisa, and that's what she does. And she's been doing it for a little while. And then Franco, her husband, kind of joined her for this joint venture here. So I don't know, maybe Lisa, you want to tell us a little bit about Franco, and then he can tell us a little bit. I'm curious, like where you've been our whole lives, because we have a little Lisa, and we know she's into this stuff, you know. And from what I've heard about you, you're a creative person, kind of doing your own creative things. So tell us, Lisa, tell us a little about your husband here, and yeah, let's take that.
Yeah. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And yes, Franco and I, we met about 5 years ago, and we discovered we'd come across this information both from different places, and actually Franco tells the story of how he came across this. I'd love to hand that aspect over to Franco to tell. But basically early on we realized that we kind of had come to this understanding about how our mind and thoughts would work, and that this had been really helpful for both of us. And like you say, it's slightly different, well, quite different to how we're sort of often taught in therapy and various things. And for both of us, it really helped us through a tough patch. And so when I started writing, when we first met, I was working on, it was the ebook, the Seven Secrets ebook, and we'd just met and we were traveling around New Zealand, and I was working on the ebook, and Franco was working on his album, music project. And so you sort of been on, you know, Franco's sort of been part of it, and as well part of the blog. I know that's my name, and it's me that's very much the front person, but there actually is a lot of Franco sort of just in the articles and as well. And I don't know, I'd love it if you share your story about how you came to this understanding.
Sure. About 25 years ago, I was, things weren't going really well in my life, and started seeing a therapist, and we were doing a sort of traditional talk therapy for a couple of months, and it was going well. And then he went away to a conference and came back and said, I've had my eyes open to a new bunch of ideas, and I don't want to continue doing therapy the way I had been doing it. I'd like to start something new. And I was really impressed with that. Anytime you see somebody, a doctor with years invested and, a whole, his clients and everything, he decided to make a change. And so I was really intrigued. I wanted to know what that was. And over the next bunch of months, we started to look at ideas about the mind and about thought. And it was something at that time called psychology of mind, which later turned into 3P psychology. It wasn't like a light went on immediately for me, but over time, there was some definite change in the way I started to view myself and the world and everything around me. So that's kind of the short story of how I got, how I was introduced to these ideas. So while Lisa was writing her article, which turned into Seven Secrets, looking over her shoulder and seeing what was going on, the ideas were kind of familiar to me, which was pretty exciting. because you don't meet somebody every day who kind of gets that thing that helped you out so much. So it was a nice thing right off the bat in our relationship, certainly, to start to share.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So, but Lisa, you didn't learn it as a thing or as a specific psychology, or did you? How did you come across it?
I didn't. I was also going through a pretty challenging time, and I was fortunate to be. I was friends with a retired psychologist, and he'd spent a lot of time. He was trained in the West, but before that, he'd spent a lot of time in the East, and so his view of what it is to be human was much broader, and was broader and sort of, I guess, more spiritual, and this sort of more of this basic understanding of what it is to be human. And so I hadn't heard of the three principles. When I was writing the ebook, I'd never heard of three principles psychology, and it wasn't until about the time when I read one of your articles, and I think at the same time had read You Can Be Happy No Matter What, that Richard Carlson book, which I really love. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hadn't realized that there was a branch of psychology that sort of thought in the same way. And the terms are different. Like, we use heart and mind, and this three principle psychology uses different terms, but it's, as far as I can see, it's really the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's very, very different, but I love that quote. I don't even know who I'm quoting, but there's truth's like the center of a town. It doesn't. There's only one center of a town. There's only one truth, and we can come to it in different ways. And
yeah, it's so fascinating because I've heard like variations on that from so many people, and me too, where it's like you hear something that really resonates, and then later you see, oh, there's actually a thing around it, but it doesn't matter what the thing is, what the title is, what the psychology is. It's really just that it's like coming together at that same truth. But it's really, really interesting that you guys like just found that you had done that on your own, like found in your own apartment one day. Hey, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think early on, Franco, you recognised that how important it was to share. We believe to share this message, and
absolutely, especially Lisa's way of doing it was so gentle and so non-confrontational. As her Seven Secrets went out into the world and people started to write letters back, it was obvious that it was having a real impact on people, and the ideas are really, really helping people, especially people in sort of a difficult time.
Yeah.
So the importance of doing it just sort of seemed really obvious to us.
Yeah. And I think you saw me, so I then started writing a book proposal, and you I don't know, we've sort of worked as a team, and that idea of that it was important sharing this idea in a book form with the world, something you felt strongly about, and so strongly that actually you've put your other projects on hold, and for the last few years, like we really we spent a lot of time in our apartment writing.
Yeah. I kind of stopped a few of the things I was doing and would come home from work and just sort of work on the book proposal, which we did for 2 years, the better part of 2 years. And I was just sort of dedicated to helping get it out. It wasn't until after I had really sort of helped develop the proposal a bit and that sort of thing that Lisa asked me to be involved, and I was pretty excited to be involved.
Yeah, we'd been, and during that, so this all took a year or two, and so with my writing, Franco was sort of participating a little bit more behind the scenes, and just started to get a feel for having two heads on the project, and we can talk about that more in relation to the book. But the more we worked together, the cooler it was, just having two heads work on something, and it was always about making it look like it was that same simple Lisa voice, but there's definitely two heads behind it.
So was it we'll talk more about like the details in some places, but in general, was it, since you kind of come from the same basic understanding, you both seem to have that same desire to just get it out in a simple way. Did it just kind of like flow from there in terms of the proposal? I mean, did you have discussions like this should be a chapter, no, it shouldn't? Or was there just like a lot of agreement on things like that along the way?
occasionally there'd be some discussion, but primarily we were trying to enhance and build and make a better Seven Secrets. But I think we decided to change a few of the chapters, and it was all pretty much discussed pretty much the whole way through.
Yeah, we were sitting on a couch together and everything.
We'd be working on something and notice that, this was supposed to be, say in the pain chapter, but it really looks like it's going to be in the learning chapter. And, this things were constantly moving around, and it was pretty much discussions the whole way through, I
wouldn't say it just flowed out. Like it, in a way, it
was work. It was definitely work.
Yeah, it was work, but it was one of the things that, we talk about this idea of intuition and using, the wisdom is there, and we definitely we've always worked like that. And so kind of thinking about things and trying to figure things out, and then just sitting back, and then ideas would come up to one of us, and then we'd, follow that idea down. So it was just sitting there, and part of it was kind of sitting there and using that kind of wisdom that we always trust will come to one of us. It's going to come to one of us. It doesn't matter who it comes to, and then we'd...
Right.
Yeah, we'd definitely leave a space open. If one of us had an idea, we'd give it a lot of reverence, for lack of a better word. We'd say, okay, this is an idea, and we'd develop it or sidebar it and bring it back. And sometimes the idea would serve as a bridge toward a whole different idea that we hadn't even considered yet.
Yeah.
And sometimes the idea would stand, but the initial idea that led us there would go away. But anytime somebody had that look in their eyes, it's like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's strange, but wow, let's pop it down.
And sometimes it was strange, but it turned into fun stuff.
That's awesome how it works. So let's talk a little bit about the book so people know what we're talking about. Then, we'll just take it from there. So let me just say first, let me just brag about the book for a minute. So I just think this is one of those books that you can give to anyone. And I've sent it to so many people, and there aren't not many books that I've come across that are like that. So every once in a while, like when I'm talking with people, I think, I think this would really resonate with them, or this would really resonate. And I really feel like this is one of those books that people who already have some of this understanding are going to love it, because it's like not boring. It's funny, and it's fun, and it's creative, and for me, reading through it, it was just like laughing and seeing. It really inspired me to be more creative myself. I think I told you that the very first time I read it. It was like they're really kind of just getting across the essence of what it is that Lisa and I write about, what you guys have put out here, like that understanding in such a light, fun way that is so not really seen very much in this field, I think, in any part of psychology, so that part is awesome. And it really is a book. So if you kind of have this understanding already, you're going to love it. And if you don't, I think it's like the perfect entryway for people, because in thinking about kind of how to have it so that a future generation in this world is born kind of knowing this stuff, that life is like this, that we do have access to common sense and wisdom, and that we don't have to take all our thinking so seriously. Like, I don't know when that generation's going to be, but I know it's going to happen at some point. And I truly think it's going to happen by a combination of things. But we have to have things like this, because these are the things that like some random person's just going to pick up because it looks kind of cute. The cover looks cute, and it's going to blow their mind open, just like you guys experienced. You just happen to meet the right person. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. I never thought about it that way, And so a lot of people aren't going to go to psychology conferences or want to hear about things that are said like in more official terms, but they're going to resonate to this. So for that reason, I just love it. And as I told you, Lisa, I've sent this to so many of my clients. And if you're one of my clients and you're watching, I have it, just send me an email and I'll send you one. So, but I also read it to my kids who are 4 and 6, and my 4-year-old was, first of all, he saw it and he's like, no, that's one of your books. I don't want to read that. And I was like, no, really, you'll like it. Just try it. So we sat down and we opened it to the first page, which is a woman on the toilet, and he was sold. I mean, he was like, she's on the toilet in a book. And then the next page that says undies and poo on like page 2, and he was really sold. So it's fun, and your little kids, especially your boys, will love it. And what's cool is they loved it, and they were looking at the pictures and everything as we're reading. But then we got, we reread the wisdom chapter, we read about the mind, we read about all these things, and they were paying attention and looking at the pictures and everything. And then sometime later, maybe a half hour later, after we had closed the book, my 4-year-old says something, and I was like, how did you know that? And he said, wisdom. So I was like, whoa, he's learning something too. So it's just a great book for anyone, really. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I mean, there aren't many books that are great for everyone, but I honestly think that this is a way for stubborn old people that don't want to think any differently to like kind of see these truths. And it's a way for 4-year-olds to see these truths, and it's a way for everyone. So it's so I like it. So do you guys have like, did you have like a market in mind when you wrote this, or were you just kind of doing what felt right to you in terms of just putting it out there the way that you like to put it out there?
Yeah, we definitely had a market, didn't we?
Yeah, but we soon thought that it would be a pretty wide age range.
Yeah,
very, very wide. Just from the letters that came in, it was from very young people, mid-teens, going through some stuff, to an older person who, had some sort of an aha moment with the book. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things is it kind of looks at first glance like a children's book, but it can be a children's book, like you say, but it's definitely an adult's book as well. So that's, I guess, yeah. So yeah, we've sort of written it for adults, but with this version, we made really sure to make it completely kid-friendly. Like the 7 Secrets ebook had a couple of, adult, I don't know, maybe a couple of swear words or something. And so we just made sure this was just super kid-friendly for any age, just because we suspected, and we'd heard that the 7 Secrets ebook, some teachers were using it with sort of 12-year-olds in the classroom, but they were taking out those pages and printing out this weird ebook. And so we thought, yeah, let's just make it available for everyone.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, kind of like what if you had to describe this in a couple words, it's, I think like the big thing that it sort of does is give people a feel for how our mind and our heart sort of work together. It's like, like how to not be led through life just by your heart and not be led through life just by your mind. Is that kind of how, like, can you guys just say a little bit about that? If you had to sum it up in a few words, kind of like the big, especially that piece, like the heart versus mind message. How, like if someone's new to this and they don't really have a feel for that already and they haven't read the book yet, what would you say is like how the heart and the mind work together in a beneficial way?
Team. They're a team. We have these different components to ourselves, and we're not going to lose one, and it's certainly not healthy for us to let our minds lead us through life or our hearts. So I think the book tries to point to a balance of these.
Yeah, and for most of us, because we live in this really heady world, the schooling is very heady and mind based, and we're sort of taught to think about what would be best for us, and to use logic to solve problems, all of our problems and all our life, to think about our life logically. So I guess in society at the moment, having both of them sort of entails figuring out how to hear your heart a little bit more, and understanding that we have this side of us, but also that our mind's wonderful and awesome and great at lots of things. And like Franco said, so it's like this idea of teamwork and how to just kind of get a little bit more balance back into things.
Yeah. And I think the illustrations help with this a lot, is it doesn't paint the mind to be the enemy. And I think a lot of things, not intentionally, but sometimes we can get that idea, of like, oh, my thinking, it's very critical and it's very limited and all of that kind of stuff, so it starts to make the mind look like an enemy. And the mind is so cute in this book. Like, it's adorable. I mean, look at it with all these Band-Aids on it. Like, that's not the enemy. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it definitely comes across in this.
It was really intentional. Yeah. We wanted to make the mind friendly, and that was one of the trickiest bits. Actually, was developing the mind character and having one that was friendly. That you can tell the mind's trying hard, but he's doing too much and working too hard is really the problem, not the mind itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So say a little bit about. So one of the chapters in here is calm, right? It talks about calm and how we're already calm. Can you say a little bit about that? Like kind of how the mind like kind of tricks us into, or maybe tricks isn't even the right word, but kind of how the mind comes in and masks our calm sometimes.
Yeah.
Just racing thoughts. We all get them, and one leads to another, and they wind us up, and we don't realize that that's not necessary. When I first learned about these things, I guess I was in a pretty intense time in my life, and as soon as I started to look at thoughts as just these things that were flowing in and out of my head all the time, the feeling I had is it created space for me to sort of exist and not be affected by them so much. And I guess that was a feeling of calm for me. And other things started to happen as well. Like as a musician, I started to have other ideas and things I could do. And with my life, I eventually, moved from one side of the country to the other, just to sort of follow the musical things that I was trying to do. So I think my intuition began to speak more loudly into that.
Yeah, I totally, I agree with everything you've said. And I guess the one little thing I'd add for myself was understanding that I was already calm underneath all these thoughts. Just really took the pressure off, because there was no need for me to try and get anywhere. Like I was already there. Like I was already here. I might not feel it. Like I might not feel it very often at all. I might be really, noticing a lot of thoughts a lot, but I still don't have to try and get anywhere. Like that bit was now off the table, and I could just kind of think, okay, I've got everything I need like within me, and even though I can't feel it, it's there, so I don't have to try so hard. It was nice.
Yeah, I love that. Like just knowing that there are answers and there's calm and there's everything we want there, and that it's just covered up by thought, and that the thought is well-meaning. It's not, and it's helpful at times, it's not a bad thing, but that it's just sort of little interference sometimes to our calm. But like you said, we don't have to come up with all the right answers. We don't have to get anywhere. Just when that thinking kind of gets quiet, then we're right there. Yeah. And that, there's another chapter about doing nothing. And I know, you guys talk about that a lot. So I forget what the exact quote was, but there's something in here kind of bold, I think. That's something about doing nothing being one of the most productive things you can do. And I can imagine a lot of people being like, what does that mean? Say a little more about that, if you would.
That's right.
Yeah, well, that ties into what you were talking about, like with the space that was created when you realized that your thoughts were sort of going on and you had this calm underneath. And so the doing nothing, and because it just sort of enhances that even more. That because often the way forward is only, we think, sorry, I'll just go back a bit, because we think to get anywhere, I certainly used to do, that we have to work really hard and think about logically all these different ways. And then when you kind of create this bit of space between you and your thoughts and doing nothing and just like sitting and pulling back and just, for us when we're working, it's just sitting on the couch, getting a cup of tea and not worrying that we haven't figured this, whatever, but we're working out on, and just, taking a break and talking about something else and just relaxing or going for a walk. And to doing nothing, however it is for us, and it just allows that sort of the mind to just quieten down, and that sort of wise bit of us to kind of speak up with this little idea, and they're not usually, usually they're very simple things. It's not like you have to change everything, like this massive turn your life upside down kind of thing. But it's just little, like an idea that can really make a huge difference. And so with the doing nothing, I when I was having a challenging time, and this psychologist friend of mine had said that it was a really helpful way just to sort of rebalance and find that, find your center. And so I would sit there and do it for sort of longer stretches. But the concept of it can be applied to anything. Just sitting back and trusting that things will happen is another way of doing nothing as well.
And it sounded like when you guys were describing how you kind of worked on this together, there was a real feelings, at least sometimes, of that space and of doing nothing, where it's like an idea, like, okay, like he has that look in his eye or she has that look. All right, we're going to put this here. We don't know what's going to happen to it yet, but it's there. We're not ignoring it. And now let's go for a walk and we'll see. We'll revisit it tomorrow, and it seems like that would, this whole understanding, I'm sure everything that you write about probably helped make this process of working together much easier than it might have been otherwise, because you could do things like that, and not have to worry about what the other person thought, or, well, how is that going to work? And that to the same extent.
Absolutely. And because we never fought, we don't really disagree. There's never anything to disagree about, because someone gets an idea, we pop it down, and then we both work, then we just kind of follow the threads, and the end result is always something that we both feel really good about. And if one of us, and we always recognize that if one of us doesn't quite feel really good about it, then there's something else to happen. So
I think both of us probably at one point or another had an idea that we were moving forward with, and the other came up with an idea that might have contradicted that in a way. But the plan was, or what we seemed to do naturally, was just give that new idea some space and couch this idea for a while. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, we would go back to that idea after exploring where this one would take us. So I think the idea of just always going with whatever's flowing at the moment, it would really work well for us.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. Like a lot of the ideas, like we didn't, like the book that's resulted with the girl on the toilet on the front page, like we didn't plan that. That was one of those wacky ideas that came up.
That wasn't in the book proposal?
It was not in the proposal, actually. The idea of, it's just, you might discover this in somebody's reading room. And then it was like, everybody's reading room is their bathroom. So why don't we just put it in there? And we did.
Yeah.
And we
oh, go ahead.
It's really nice to hear that you saying you enjoyed the book and thought it was funny, because when we were writing it, we had a lot of fun and we laughed at all of these things as well. And, so it's fun hearing that was the result.
Yeah. Were there things that you laughed about together and you kind of had in there, and then you looked at each other and said, are we really going to put this in there? I would imagine there had to have been.
Well, the toilet for one,
Some of them we'd pull out, but there are definitely some in there that, I can't, that is still there. And that's one of the things that's like following that little voice that says, this is more. And it seems like your mind's really quick to say, no, we can't do that. Like,
right.
Don't do that, or that's too blah, blah, or we haven't planned for that, or why would she be on a trapeze? Like we haven't, what's she doing on a trapeze in the pain chapter, or like that doesn't make sense. So your mind's got all this, we noticed, didn't we, when we were working together, It's easy for your mind to come up with all these reasons why that idea shouldn't stand. And and the more we do it, that we've got better and better at just letting ideas stand. And if they fall later on, that's fine. But just giving them some air and not being so quick to kind of knock them down with the sort of mind talk that might say that's not proper. But
yeah. And there was something we learned with the articles. Before publishing one, or one went out on Tiny Buddha or whatever it would go, if there was this sort of feeling of nervousness, like had the border been pushed a little too much here, and how it'd be. The nervousness kind of always meant that it was going to get some kind of a real response. Like there was something alive in there that we weren't quite sure about that was going to sort of engage people in one way or another. And so I think we started to look for that feeling. Are we pushing it? Are we pushing it enough? Are we pushing it just enough? Yeah, I think that it was a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's scary. I find it scary.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because, it's like you guys have learned to just kind of read that feeling a little bit intuitively. Like, it's not like you would give someone else advice and say, oh, if you're really nervous, that's going to be a hit. That's not a rule.
Right.
But you just over time, come to like kind of see how that feels. And that's kind of what this is about, right? It's about like, there's no rules. We don't know. Life is new in every single moment. We don't know. No one ever knows, but you just kind of feel your way forward.
Yeah.
And but like without the feeling, like at one stage the book was like twice as long. Like it was, and I think our mind we'd kind of got nervous. We had this book deal, and we were like trying to cram everything we knew, and then we realized what we were doing, and kind of stepped back, and then we kind of got more in touch. That was kind of a sort of turning point for us, wasn't it? And I think we kind of got more in touch with trusting and having fun, like just getting that balance back again.
And partway through, we started to realize what we could do with the illustrations. Mm-hmm. And the illustrations have a separate narrative all the way through. It works with the text, but it also has its own thing going on. And with that, we were able to get rid of lots of the extra writing ideas that we put in and just have that represented with illustrations. So we kind of had these two things that we were commanding at the same time, the text and the illustrations.
That's really cool.
We really planned that. That was not planned. The illustrations,
not planned.
No, we didn't expect that that story, the story that's told through the illustrations, to be so much a part of it. But
so it was always kind of in tandem, like the words would come kind of alongside the illustrations, or how did that happen?
Text first, I think.
Yeah. The text first, and then was like some of the illustrations were came along with the text. They've always been part of the text. Mm-hmm. But once we had the basic structure of the text and then the illustration really started. That world really started to grow, and we'd actually, because I think I think you read the first draft.
I saw a different version, and then you said, "Hey, we changed all the pictures."
And the version you saw, that was our first draft that we'd handed to our editor, and that was largely with my illustrations. So that would have probably looked really familiar. It was, and then we discovered that Franco had this, well, I think, is a really amazing ability, and so we started to figure out how to sort of keep that same kind of look, mm-hmm. And the simpleness that we had going with the text and sort of the illustrations of the characters. And then we figured out what Franco could do. And so the look you're seeing is, there's a lot of huge amount of Franco in with the backgrounds and the scenery and the perspective work. Franco works in film production, and
where the view of the page is, what I equated to a camera angle. Are we coming from an upshot or to the left or to the right, and just sort of playing with the viewing, the point of view.
Yeah.
As you look at the page.
And I'm like discovering that, and so we're both working together, certainly on the illustrations, but discovering what we could do together was so much fun. It was so much fun and hectic, because we'd handed in the first draft and we had a few weeks for the second draft, so we really had to illustrate the whole book, and there's like 160 illustrations. We did it in a few weeks, and it was incredible, and we like barely left the house. And
so were your editors totally fine with the first draft, and then you give them this much better draft? Were they like, wow, where'd that come from? Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they loved the first draft, and they really dug the second.
And I love the colors too. Just like, it just has such a cohesive feel to it. It's like like, you know, I mean, it looks like your stuff, but different, you know, but I don't know, everything in here. And then the animation you guys have on your website, I don't know, it just has a real feel to it. Like this little woman like comes to life and the mind comes to life, you know, all these characters, they really have I don't know, they just really, they don't look like little drawings. On the one hand, it's so not fancy, which is exactly what this book is. And I think what this understanding is, it's not fancy. It's so commonplace and so simple. And that's why I love that you guys kind of portray it in that way. But what is fancy is the wood floors. Like, did you draw? Oh my gosh. You drew all these wood.
Somebody noticed.
Floors look better than our real wood floors. How did they do this? Really good. My favorite pictures are the ones of her ironing. I don't know. Like, there's just something about this, like the perspective and the dimensions and all of that in there. It's just, she's ironing and she has her phone and like all the wood floors are there. Yeah, really good. Yeah, I can imagine. So your editors never, like, they were just happy with you guys illustrating, and did you get a lot of like feedback on that piece of it, or was the feedback more on the text?
Occasionally there'd be a couple of words like beautiful image or really nice, and generally a steady flow of approval.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And sometimes, you know, when we were, because the illustrations they work really well with that, hopefully work in with the text. And a few times our editor would say, you know, this text illustration doesn't match the words. So if we did get off track and things weren't gelling, they would definitely pull us up on that. And
from time to time, they'd have an idea of how something could work better, or they just have a really strong opinion this isn't working, and like, okay, we can work with that.
Totally. Yeah, we're pretty flexible.
Yeah.
I mean, having feedback, and we had a friend, she would read it as well and give us feedback, and our editor, of course, who was fantastic. And, you know, it's just so great to have an outside, you know, view as you're working on something.
Yeah. Cool. So just a couple other things I want to touch on, like from the content of the book. One, so you're talking about sort of how our thinking, our mind is just always going, right? And beneath that, there's a calm. And when we let our thoughts just flow, they do just kind of flow a little more nicely and naturally, and there tends to be more of a space there. And then in the part of the book where we want to punch you in the face, you say that stress is a choice. So that's like, right, like stress is a choice. So say a little bit more about that. If these stressful thoughts kind of flow through, kind of where's the choice in it?
The attention you give to it. It's you know, we all get stressed out. We all have lots of thoughts going through our head, maybe from one really important thing, or just a really busy life, or whatever the situation is. But we're giving it almost full attention.
Yeah.
And that's a choice. That's, you know, we have the choice to step away from that and sort of remember ourselves and remember our calm. That's what that means to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, like in the following pages, is like, it's useful to know that, but it's also, we don't need to beat ourselves up for feeling tense, you know, like it's both okay. You can kind of have those, you know, two ideas. So,
right.
Yeah, the stress is because, like Franco said, we're getting caught up in our thoughts, and also it's totally okay and natural when we do that. But but just by knowing that we're getting caught up in our thoughts and that's what's causing the problem, it's that space that Franco was talking about, it, and you talk about a lot as well. Just that little bit of space can just kind of make things easier.
Yeah,
I love your metaphor of the sun and being in the sky, and the clouds are just thoughts rolling through. That's I think about that one a lot. It's nice.
Yeah, me too. It's not mine, but yeah, I know it's a good one. I use it a lot. But I think that's what this book really does too, is it just gives you that feel of that. And that's really, because it's not about choosing different thoughts. You know, when you say that explicitly in here, it's not that hard. We don't have to sift through anything. We don't have to sort through our thoughts. We don't have to actively choose certain ones over other ones. But by understanding what you teach in here, kind of how the mind is different from something deeper than the mind, it's like that space, you know, there's a natural kind of space that grows there. So this just goes and does what it does, and it's just not so important. So yeah, I think that really comes across. And to me, I think that's like just in my opinion, but I think that's like the biggest foundational thing for people to see. Because when you get a feel for that, nothing, everything else is just, you figure it out. That's like it's like getting enough sleep and eating an adequate diet and having shelter, from then on from then you just do what you do. You just, choose the extras. But to kind of have a feel, for the mind, how it works and what's under it is huge. And that's really kind of what the whole book is about, I think. So anything else that, I don't know, I just love it. My favorite chapter, which we didn't even talk about, was the learning and how our mind thinks it loves to learn stuff. Cause that's so kind of counterproductive too. I think everyone would say, I do love to learn things. And in many ways, our mind just likes that efficiency and the status quo, and it kind of keeps our world kind of small, all well-meaning. It's not bad, but just to know that it works that way. And I love when you guys talked about what you called it, like being belief blind. I'd say it a lot as like a fish in water, right? So we have so much thinking. We're like a fish in water, where the fish says, "What's water? I'm just living my life." And you guys talk about like being belief blind, where we're just. You want to say a little bit about that? Just how how we can get so blind to our own thinking and beliefs.
Yeah, and I've had this experience a lot. We all do. Like someone will tell you a new idea, and it's like you can't hear it. And sometimes, people have read the book, or you're talking to them, and I can see it happening with them. It's like the words were on the page, and they haven't. It's like our brains don't take them in. And the psychologist friend I was with, who was so helpful to me, like I'd known him for 5 or 6 years before. And when I finally got it, I said, "Why didn't you tell me this stuff before?" And he said, "I did. I've always been talking about this. I had 5 years of it. 5 years.
Why didn't you listen before?"
What's that?
He said, "Why didn't you listen before?"
I know. But it's like I don't know. It's this.
You have trouble seeing it.
We can't hear or something.
Really
These new ideas, like I'm not quite sure how it happens, but it's like it's like we're blind. And so one of the ideas and hopes that we have for the book is that because it's kind of in this wackiness, that maybe some of these new beliefs might kind of slip in while you're laughing at the little mind or something, because it's tricky, and it's just one of those things. So it happens to all of us and continues to happen to me. And anyway,
I think that will definitely happen for a lot of people. It just kind of like slips in because you're not thinking about it too much. You're not overthinking anything. You're just sitting in the reading room or wherever you're sitting, reading the book, and then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the blackboard drawing, the mind writing. I love what I already know. People often say they really like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you guys could talk about the book a little bit. Let us in on just kind of some of the behind the scenes, how it is to work together. And it's nice to know how easy it can be. And really, I think you guys obviously you guys just work together well. It seems naturally, but I don't know if you'd say this. It seems like a lot of like this understanding, again, like the things you're writing about are helping you probably in that process because you're just knowing what's what more.
Yeah. It would look really different if we didn't.
You're writing a chemistry book together.
It's hugely, hugely helpful. It makes things easier and a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And it's good practice. Working together is a really good way to practice this stuff.
And it's probably like you can take it into the rest of your lives together, because in so many ways it's like, okay, well, I have this idea. Well, I'm not sure about this. Okay, well, let's just go make dinner. And, you could do that writing a book together, but you can do that in anything you come across in life. And we all can, really.
Yeah. And I don't know if we said more with me, but just how easy it is for our mind to get kind of stuck on an idea and, and kind of get scared, and how that can stop us. And
Absolutely.
But trusting the letting go is the more I do it, the easier it gets, and the more I see it's just the best way. I don't need to be as afraid or controlling, or my mind can kind of take a step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. And
Yeah.
you know, we are huge fans, I'd just like to say, of your stuff, Amy, of course. And so it's thank you for chatting with us today. And
yeah, thank you. And thank you for sharing this. And I'm going to share this interview and this book, continue to share the book with a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit, tell us what's your website together, where there's a really cool animation, if you haven't seen it yet, kind of a book trailer that goes with the book for people to watch. So yeah, tell us that, and then where they can buy the book.
francoandlisa.com is the website, and you can buy the book. Pretty much any bookstore can order it for you. A lot of bookstores have it. Barnes and Nobles, and but you know, they will order it for you if they don't have it in, and of course you can buy it online at all the different online stores, Amazon and all the rest, and around the world. Most bookstores around the world would be able to order it for you if you told them the name of it.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. Good. Well, thank you so much. And
Thanks, Amy. Thank you.
once again, everyone, here's the book. And I'll have, when I publish this, I'll have all kinds of details. I'll have the website and all that stuff there so people can find it easily. So great. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.